guys. I see we got. Hey everyone, Dave Menz, Laundromat Millionaire here, and I am excited to be here. If you aren't aware, I have hacked into the Laundromat resource chat. If you can hear me okay, let me know in the chat just so we know at least I am working okay, but I believe that I am. So it's good to see some friendly faces and some new faces. That's awesome too. Hey Matt, Waleed, how are you guys doing? It's fall here in Cincinnati, and I don't know about you guys, but I love fall. My favorite time of year. But guys in the chat, let me know if everyone can hear me okay. Thumbs up. Good, Dave. All right. Thanks, guys. Well, it's good to know you can at least hear me. Jordan is going to keep working on things. If you just joining us, I have hacked into the Laundromat Resource YouTube channel and I have taken over. What it is, guys, is I've been trying to grow my YouTube channel. If you don't know me, I'm Dave, Laundromat Millionaire Men's. I have a YouTube channel, so go check me out. But I've been trying to grow my channel, but I haven't been able to grow it as fast as Jordan's. I think it's because he's so good looking and so well spoken, and I'm neither of those. So anyway, I decided if I couldn't grow my channel as fast as Jordan's, then I would just hack into his channel and take over. But hopefully at some point he will join us if he figures this out. But man, it is so good to see all the chat happening. It is awesome. Yeah, let us know where you guys are from. And by the way, start pounding away at those questions, guys. Jordan's hopefully going to join us soon, but I'll do the best I can, man. I'm not Jordan, but I'll do what I can. Let us know where you guys are from. That's always where we like to start it. Okay, you can hear us, Derica. Okay, good deal. Yeah, it's good to see some friendly faces. Hey, Bill, Waleed, and Matt, how are you guys doing? And I always crack up when some of the people get on their YouTube channels and it's under their laundromat's name, and so it shows the name of your laundromat, but we don't actually know who you are, which is always kind of funny because usually it's somebody we know. But anyway, yeah, I love to see you guys chatting it up over there and getting to know each other. We've got people all over the country in here, and this is pretty fantastic. So hopefully Jordan gets to join us soon. But by all means, guys, Maryland, wow. Florida, Hawaii, wow. What an honor. Thank you, guys. Phoenix. Kevin Hughes says he's in Phoenix getting to own a laundromat. Yeah, so Kevin's asking the age-old question of what does a newbie do? What advice do you have for a new investor? So first of all, I'll tell you that I don't know everybody in the chat, but I know a lot of people, and there's some really smart people in the chat. Jordan always says that he is his favorite part of these Q&As is actually everybody in the chat, because a lot of people in the chat are a lot smarter than us. We got Joel here from Scottsdale, Pennsylvania. I thought you were going to say Scottsdale, Arizona. I didn't know there was a Scottsdale, Pennsylvania. But anyways, yeah, good to see you guys. Several from New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey. I got to tell you guys, for those of you that don't know, me and Jordan did these for about a year, maybe a little over a year, and we would rotate back and forth between the Laundromat Millionaire YouTube channel, which is mine, and Jordan's here at the Laundromat Resource. And we did that for, I don't know, 13, 14 months, something like that. And I'm not sure we ever had we had great participation, don't get me wrong, but I think this might already be a new level. So thanks for checking us out. But yeah, for the newbies, yeah, some people already mentioned in there, Jordan has a free course. I think it's 3 videos. I'm not sure if it's in his pro membership or in his paid membership. But actually, it might even just be on YouTube. So it might even just mentioned. But yeah, check that out. That's I think it's 3 videos that are about 20 minutes long, if I remember right. I remember watching it. That's good information for sure. A couple other things for you newbies that I recommend is checking out podcasts. There's a lot of good ones out there. Specifically, me and Carla, we just hit our 50th episode on the Laundromat Millionaire podcast. So if you're on there, check that out. Obviously, Jordan has a podcast. If you guys didn't know, which I'm sure you do, he just went over 100 episodes. I highly recommend checking out number 2. That's my favorite episode. That guy is really, really smart. Just kidding. For those of you guys that don't know, that's I was on the second episode of Jordan's podcast when he launched it. But anyway, I always recommend people start there. There's some good books out there. I always recommend people check out the CLA. A lot of good information there. Once again, a big part of getting a lot of solid knowledge and information on the industry is to check out the podcast, the books. There's two magazines out there which are free subscriptions: American Coin Op and Planet Laundry magazine. They have a lot of good articles from experienced owners. And then things that require a little bit more investment. I do have a course for newbies. It's There's a cost associated with that. It's not free like Jordan's. It's a little bit bigger course. It's about 8 hours long. You can check that out on my website. The CLA membership tends to be a pretty good investment for new investors. They do a lot of things for newbies. So those are some somewhat inexpensive and some things that cost a little bit of money. One of the biggest things that I recommend you do is take your time. Try to find a great equipment distributor in your market. They're going to typically be really know your market well. They're going to really have their finger on the footprint of the market, the sub market. They're going to be able to give you a lot of good advice. I'm not saying all equipment distributors are good, but I can tell you that. Thanks, Heath. Appreciate that. Yeah, Heath took my course for new investors, and he recommends it, so I appreciate that. But another thing I recommend doing is actually stuff like this, which obviously you guys are already doing. And so I highly recommend that because obviously this is free. A couple cautionary tales is there is a lot of bad information out there on the industry. I think Jordan would probably be the first to tell you that. Um, and that's something that you have to be cautious of. There's a lot of business brokers that are good brokers, solid people, but there are some that are really bad and kind of shady. So you got to watch out for those too. And people, new investors always ask me, well, how do you know the difference? How do you know the difference? The best way I know to tell people the best information from a high level is the more people you talk to and the more information you gather, you're going to start to see consistencies in people's character. You're going to see consistencies in the things that they say, the things that they do. And some of those things won't necessarily line up with some of the things you're hearing from other resources. So, not to say that just me and Jordan's platforms are the only good information out there. That's not at all true. And he would tell you that too. But those are two solid platforms, and I recommend the CLA. I think there's a lot of good information on there as well. If you attend conferences like the Clean Show we just had, if you attend with the Laundromat Millionaire conference that we did last year, you can find a lot of good information on there as well. But probably the best way to do it is to try, and it can be tough, try to network with local laundromat owners in your area. Sometimes you do have to go an hour or two outside of your market because the people in your market aren't going to necessarily feel comfortable sharing their secrets with you. So a lot of times you'll have trouble with that, and they'll kind of run you out of the place. But those are some good resources. I know some new investors get frustrated when we don't just kind of hand over like, oh, this is the answer to being a new investor. And the truth is that if there was just one single resource that was the golden goose of everything you need to know, then by all means, I would tell you what that is, even if it weren't on my platform. But nothing like that exists. But the good news is there's a lot of good people out there in the industry that are kind of putting themselves out there that do have good information, that are solid, high character people. And those are some great places to start for sure. But yeah, I'm going to try to jump into some of the questions here. I can see Jordan's still poking around, so I know he's trying to get in and he can't figure out why. So hopefully you don't have to listen to me the whole time, but at least one of us got connected. So let me comb through here and take a look at some of these questions. Mm. Okay, dude, 727 says, what are some of the worst case outcomes when dealing with shady brokers? Well, not to scare you, but I mean, the worst case scenario is my goodness, I don't know that I want to think about a word. I mean, what I'd like to think is the worst case scenario is that you drastically overpay for a store. I tell the story all the time. You may have heard it where a coaching client of mine, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching with laundromat owners that are both in the industry and new to the industry, and had a coaching client or had somebody call me that became a coaching client that they found me about 6 weeks after they bought their first laundromat, and they had paid like $650,000 for a laundromat, which there's laundromats worth that, so that's fine. And the only thing he told me in our initial discovery call is, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. And so we started digging in, took an hour, hour and a half or so. I started realizing he drastically overpaid for this store. We drilled down a little bit more and realized this store was probably only worth about 150 to $200,000, and he had paid 650 for it. So unfortunately, he didn't have a mentor, he didn't have a coach, he didn't have a distributor, he hadn't sought out information. He had just kind of, this is what the guy's asking, and luckily, he was a wealthy individual, so I think he's going to be okay. But it was a pretty tough situation. So when you ask, is there what's the worst case scenario? I mean, I'm sure it can get worse than that. If Jordan were here, he would tell his story. He struggled for years buying a laundromat, overpaying for it, and has struggled for years. Let me take a look and see what other questions we have. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I'm saying this name right, but Derica Smith says, I noticed there's YouTube channels on free laundromats. Is that realistic? Yeah, not to address a specific topic or video or something like that, but just in general, I think most experienced laundromat owners would tell you, free kind of semantics there. I mean, what are you really getting for free if you have to go borrow a bunch of money and things like that? But let's just isolate it into, can you actually get a laundromat for free? The answer is yes, you can. But the answer is also that it's very difficult to do. And in my opinion, which is what you're here for tonight, in my opinion, what I tell people, oh, did my camera, did you lose me? No, okay. In my opinion, most of the opportunities to acquire the free laundromats where you can get them without any cost, typically you're buying or typically you're acquiring a situation where the facilities are very old and run down. You're acquiring more often than not some pretty poor locations. So they can, even if you fix them up and make them nice, they're going to struggle. There's a reason that they went out of business. But the truth is, one of my four stores that I have, I acquired for no money. I got technically for free. Um, and it's a good location. It's a really good location. I acquired it early on. So what I like to tell people is, can it be done? Yes, it can be done. Are there good opportunities out there? Yes, there are. There are probably fewer available today than ever, excuse me, ever before. But what I caution people on is, if you are going to acquire a laundromat through that model, just be really careful, because the last thing I'd want you to do is acquire it for quote unquote free and then go borrow several $100,000 and fix it up and put new equipment in it, and then find out that it's not really a viable location. Because there is a lot of bad information out there that suggests things like, if it was a laundromat before and it was successful, it'll be a laundromat now and it can be successful, and that's just not the case at all. I mean, markets change, they shift. So that's the quick version, the quick answer to that. Let's see what else we got going on over here. Man, there's so many questions. You guys are killing it. Thank you. Taking a look here to see what we got. Yeah, David Baker says, how do buyers protect themselves from misinformation provided by brokers and sellers? The answer to that is education. That's just the truth. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. There's many different ways you can acquire education. You can pay a coach who already has that knowledge, and they can help you screen these processes, screen these opportunities. You can acquire the knowledge like I did, through scrappy means over a long period of time, making a bunch of mistakes. Got a few things right, got a lot of things wrong. I think that's probably similar to Jordan's path. He'd probably tell you got more wrong than right. Um, I did happen to have a great equipment distributor who acted as a great mentor to me regarding the facilities. So if you can't afford a coach, typically what I tell people is to invest in a long-term relationship with your local equipment distributor. And that can be difficult to do. In the course I was telling you about that I have on my website, it's one of the modules in the courses I teach you how to do that, how to find and recognize a great distributor, And then, of course, also how to build a relationship with them. Because one of the things people don't realize about Rockstar equipment distributors is they're very busy. And I've learned this because my equipment distributor has become one of my best friends now. And he tells me all the time, he probably spends a minimum of half of his time each week kind of fighting off tire kickers. There's a lot of people that come into this industry, they hear, shady or bad information on the internet. They think it's going to be easy, passive money and all these things. Next thing you know, they contact an equipment distributor and they want to pick their brain for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever it is. And to be honest with you, it's just like a big waste of their time. And so a lot of the best equipment distributors, that most of the best equipment distributors out there, they have too much business already. And then they have newbies come into the industry, which they call tire kickers. And they have to very quickly screen them to try to figure out, is this person serious? Is this person not serious? Do they have the capital to invest in this business? Do they really know what they're doing? Or did they just see a fancy YouTube video that suggests they can get a laundromat for free? So the fact of the matter is, what I tell people is, you're looking for that knowledge, that education. Can you get it through the school of hard knocks? You absolutely can. You're going to experience hard knocks, and it's going to take you typically anywhere from 2 to 5 years, sometimes a little longer, depending on the lessons you learn or don't learn. Several of you asked about some things I've commented on my website. The website's just laundromatmillionaire.com. So feel free to go over there and check that out. Thanks for asking. Yeah, Heath Hollingsworth asked, how did I determine that he overpaid? I don't want to bore you too much with it because we don't have all night, of course, Heath. But the quick answer is that there's a general rule of thumb, and at least the way I approach things. And I wasn't in his market, by the way, so I had to do a lot of this over the phone. That's why the first call alone took a couple hours. And we worked together for a while before we figured out, what we could do about that. He actually even paid me a fee to come out to Minneapolis, which is where he was. And I spent an entire day with him out there, kind of evaluating his market, his competitors, figuring out if there was a path forward or if this was just a lost cause. But the quick answer is, the general rule, the stores are worth roughly anywhere from 1 to 7x of net operating income. And so that's a general rule of thumb. The next thing you want to drill down within that formula is you want to figure out things like the length of the lease, how solid is the lease, the rent rate that you're paying, is the lease assumable? Things like that are vitally important. The age and the age and quality of the equipment that's in the store, the infrastructure, things like that are important. And then you're also going to evaluate the competition. So you want to look at things like demographic reports and try to figure out a rough idea of, based on the demographics in that area, how many people in that area need a laundromat. And then once you back into that formula, then you got to look at the market and say, okay, how many laundromats are in this area that are currently serving that market? Hey, we got a rock star on our hands. Look at that.
You guys didn't start without me, did you?
Well, I didn't have a choice, Jordan. It's 7:30. I told him, I said, I got bad news for you. I'm not as good looking as Jordan, and I'm not as smart as Jordan, so you're just going to have to listen to me.
I literally was kicking kids off of their homework, their computers, and
Give me your computer.
Finally, I'm just on my phone, and it seems to be working for now. So sorry about that.
Well, hey, we've done this with pink headphones before, so
that's right.
We can get it done, man. We can get it done. We've done this at Disney World or Disneyland, whatever y'all call it out there.
That's right.
It's good to see you, man. I was man, I tell you what, I was telling these guys, dude, look over in the chat, dude. It is blowing up. I was telling them we did these for 12, 13 months. I mean, they were well attended, don't get me wrong, but I think we might have probably double the people in the chat this time that we had in the past. So, and I was telling them, I said, I've been trying to grow my YouTube channel and I can't grow it. So I had no choice but to hijack yours. And you didn't know I'm so tech savvy. I could lock down your camera and your microphone, so I could just take over. And I said, since I can't get my YouTube channel to 10,000, I just decided I would hack into Jordan's.
Well, hey, you know what? Your technology skills have improved vastly since
they have. That's true. I mean, that's not saying much when you start at zero.
No, man. All right. Well, I don't want to interrupt the flow of things. Sorry,
dude. It's your channel. Are you kidding me?
Hey guys, super excited to be here. 29 minutes late, but let's keep it rolling. I don't know if you're
Better
answering the
late than
question
never.
or what you're doing here.
Yeah, I was finishing up. We've got a bunch of newbies in the chat, and then obviously we've
Sweet.
got a bunch of really smart, familiar faces too. So I already covered the bases of guys. Jordan's favorite part of these things is what happens in the chat. I already covered it. You don't
Dude,
even have to tell him. I've
that's what I'm
already
talking.
got it taken care of.
All right, good.
But yeah, we've been, I've been pushing some people to your mini course. I think that's what it's called for new investors. The 3 videos you put together. I told him I wasn't sure if that was part of your pro membership or the free membership. I wasn't
Free,
exactly sure. Free.
free,
Okay.
free. Yeah,
Several people said they'd watch it. I've watched it personally. Um, so yeah, good information. And then shameless plug. I told him about my paid course as well. And then
do
Heath
it.
gave me a quick shout out. Nice of him to do. He took the course and he felt like it helped him a lot. But yeah, I think the last question I asked was just about kind of horror stories. I thought it was kind of ironic that you weren't here for that question because I
Yeah,
said, man, I said Jordan's an expert at the horror stories.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, I don't want to yeah, I don't want to scare
that's
anybody, but
exactly what I said.
yeah, I mean, listen, things can go wrong, but I mean, honestly, like between the stuff you're putting out and other people in this industry. I mean, you got Waleed. I saw Waleed in
Mhm.
here at least
He's here.
earlier.
Yep.
You got the Willafords. There's people putting stuff out there. There's more information and more help out there for people than ever before that I know of.
Uh-huh.
And with the caveat of just know who you're listening to. That's all. There's good information and there's bad information, but there's more information out there than ever before. So you
Yeah,
can
one of
go
the
wrong, but there's tools, resources, and
Mhm.
information to help you go right
Mhm.
from the
One of
beginning.
the questions I addressed quickly, I'll let you jump in on that because it's a good question, is how do you tell the difference in the good information and the bad information?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, right? And then, basically, here's how I'd answer it. If it lines up with what I would say, it's good information.
True
And
story there.
no,
If
I
they
mean,
agree with me, they're smart. That's what I say.
yeah, no, but I mean, genuinely, like, I mean, don't believe anything anybody says solo, right? Like, don't believe anything I say on my
Yep.
own. Don't believe anything
100%
Dave
agree.
says on their own. You know, corroborate that on, with other people who know the business, right? Jump on the Laundromat Resource forums, go on the Laundromat Millionaire Facebook group,
Mhm.
and ask people questions that you have, and just make sure, the information that you're getting is valid from people who would know. And
Mhm.
that with saying that, there's a lot of people who like to say a lot of things on the internet and on podcasts and on YouTube videos and on forums and Facebook groups and all that stuff who don't really know. So, same as anything else, like go find people who are doing what you're trying to do and
Mhm.
ask them the questions, model after them. And, that's a good way to go about it, I would say.
Yeah, one of the things I pointed out too was, obviously there's a bunch of podcasts out there. Waleed has a podcast, not specific to laundromats, but specific to business and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I told him, you have over 100 episodes out there nowadays, and almost all of them, with a few exceptions, are laundromat owners sharing their story.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like reading a biography to a certain extent. And so I was telling him, if you go through 100 episodes of the Laundromat Resource podcast, and all these stories, and you're going to get the trials, the tribulations, and the wins too, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
start to see consistencies. You're going to start to recognize those things. But also, what's going to happen is I still to this day have people reach out to me every day for said, "Hey, I saw you on the Laundromat Resource podcast." And next thing you know, they'll find my website, shoot me
Mm-hmm.
an email, and they feel like I have some level of credibility because I've been on the show and they've heard my story and they visit my website and things like that. So when people say, "How do you know who to listen to?" Well, you can check out a podcast and interview with them an hour, hour and a half long. To a certain extent, you can kind of get a feel for, do they have good character? Are they knowledgeable? Maybe they're knowledgeable about what they do, but you want to pursue a different business model. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to follow somebody different that does a different model than yours. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You mentioned the Facebook groups, and that's awesome too. But man, I tell you what, I'm so good to see Stacy run full over there too, for sure. It has been a long time, and me and Jordan have been texting. We've both been so busy, and I don't know about Jordan, but for me, I've been very stressed. Not lately so much, but there was That was crazy town for a little while. So we had to take a break. But I am so glad to be back and doing this. So we appreciate you guys being here and helping each other and asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, what have you been going through these things?
Dude, there's so many of them. You
I know.
couldn't. I'm telling you, it's
Okay.
fantastic.
Well, here's a
I
layup.
only answer. I only talked about 3 or 4 of them. So
Okay, here's a layup. I don't know if you got to this one or not, but best laundromat book.
best laundromat book. Yeah, for me, it's
Let
gonna
me
be.
just answer.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Laundromat Millionaire is the best laundromat book. I mean, that was the layup. It seems like you were going to say some other book, so I had to.
Yeah, I was. I'm a big fan of Today's Laundromat from the Coin Laundry Association. But Laundromat Millionaire is pretty good too. That guy knows a little something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get my book on my website, what he's referring to there. But Jordan's got some awesome resources on his website too. I know y'all are already on his platform, so you probably already know all about that stuff. But
yeah. Okay. What trade show conferences best to attend? Well, you just missed Clean.
you did. I actually told him about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then there's other events kind of going around, but there's not a ton.
Well, the cool thing too, I mean, you were talking about just different people having podcasts, different people having books. Different people are also doing what do we call them? They're not all conferences, but I mean, like we have the pickup and delivery workshop that we're doing at the end of this month. The Williford brothers just did the boot camp, and I know they're doing another one in March or April or something. We're doing another pickup and delivery workshop in April too. All that's on the website. I saw that the CLA is doing a pickup and delivery / wash, dry, fold workshop in Chicago I think it's the middle of November. I'm going to that. And then there's like Excellence in Laundry, which is more of a higher level conference. I think it's out in California somewhere in May, if I remember. So the big ones are typically Excellence in Laundry, the Clean Show, and then of course the best one by far, not even close,
Thank you.
is the Laundromat Millionaire conference.
Actually, that's genuine. I mean,
well, thank you.
Jokingly, but I mean that is genuine.
I was going to say mainly because of the host. I mean, the guy that kept us on time and everything.
Listen, I don't want to be patting your back. I don't want you patting my back. Genuinely, just like that is the best one. Or I don't know if it's happening again or what, but that's the best one. So if it's happening again, go to that one if you got to choose. Okay. So building a laundromat from scratch. Did you talk about that one yet?
We did not.
All right. So question about building a laundromat from scratch, particularly the plumbing and electrical. How complicated is it? What kind of property should I look for to lower costs? I'll just start off that answer. It depends. I mean, that's the answer to everything, right?
Did I mention I miss you?
Yeah. Yeah. It depends. I mean, if you're looking to do like a laundromat, it's got self-serve stuff, all of that. Question of how complicated is it? Well, I mean, it's pipes and wires. It's not any more complicated than anything else, but there are specific things you need to know, not you particularly, but whoever's helping you build it, unless you're building it yourself. There are particular things for laundromats. You need certain size pipes. You need certain there's certain electrical demands that washing machines are going to use. So you need to have the right stuff, infrastructure in your business. And in terms of what kind of property you should look for to lower costs, I mean, if you're looking for the lowest cost, you got to go somewhere where no one wants to be, right? Like that's where stuff's the cheapest. But if you're looking for, the best investment, that's a different question. And, I mean, it's always a balance, right? Between, getting a good price. It's a value question, right? Getting a good price, but also getting a quality of job that's going to last you a long time and serve your business that you're investing a lot of money in for the longest amount of time. So I don't know if you want to add something to that.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think I always worry, and I'm sure they don't mean it this way, but I always worry when people are looking for the cheapest, because this business is just what you're looking for is the best value. Jordan hit the nail on the head. You're not looking for the cheapest. You're looking for the best value. So do we want to pay $50 a square foot? Of course not. That's probably not a good idea. Do we need gold-plated plumbing? No, of course not. But we need to do this business the right way. And whenever I see people building a quote unquote laundromat with inferior location, inferior facilities, inferior equipment, you see people putting residential equipment in with a coin slide. Well, you put residential equipment in with a coin slide, it's still residential equipment, even if it takes money. That doesn't make it commercial grade equipment. And by the way, just because it says commercial grade equipment on the machine doesn't mean it's commercial grade equipment either. So yeah, I always worry about that. We're looking for the best value. And that goes back to the education I was talking about before Jordan jumped on. When you have the knowledge, you have the education, or at least have a coach, a mentor to guide you, a great equipment distributor, all of the above. When you have those things, all of a sudden these things kind of come together for you. And I have many coaching clients that, they'll be, I mean, I'll be coaching them through the process. They trust me and I'll be telling them, look, this is going to be a great investment for you. And, they're still apprehensive. They have a good distributor. They've been in the industry for a while. They're about to spend $300,000 on equipment. Look, it's terrifying. I mean, it just is. There's no two ways about it. But what helps you is having the right people in your corner, connecting with the right people, networking with the right people, having the right relationships, all those things. Yeah, I'm not sure who Wash Right is, but Wash Right says cheap is expensive. That's exactly right. One of the things my mentor Steve Millman told me. If you read my book, I talked quite a bit about him. One of the things he told me his dad told him a long time ago is it sure can be expensive to be cheap, which is a little bit different play on that. So
Yeah. There's a couple questions specifically for you and your wash dry fold business. Are you processing most of that at night?
we do. Yeah, we have what's called a mini crew that works second shift. It's no more than 3 people, typically 2. But yeah, most of our laundry is processed overnight when the store is closed to the public. And there's an art to that for sure. But it's by far the most efficient way to process. And for us, we want to be a full service laundry center. So some people get into pickup and delivery, wash, dry, fold because they don't want to own a laundromat. They want to kind of cannibalize it, turn it into a factory. There's nothing wrong with that. I love the laundromat business. I love self-serve, drop off, dry cleaning, pickup and delivery. I love all aspects of the business. And so I don't ever want one of my revenue streams to cannibalize or even hurt another one. So that's how we choose to do it. But full disclosure, you're not just going to launch pickup and delivery with a truck and have thousands of pounds of laundry right away. So typically what I tell people is, when you first start, you're going to have lower volume. You're just going to have your attendants process it for you. Then as it grows a little bit, you might hire an extra attendant or 2 to work second shift. And then eventually you'll grow to the point where you have enough volume to justify having at least 2 or 3 people on third shift. Because you wouldn't really, in most markets, you wouldn't really want to have, 1 or 2 people working by themselves overnight. That's just probably not safe. So I think when we pivoted from second shift to third shift, we kind of pushed it right up to the edge of what would disrupt our store. And I think it was 4 people, if I remember right. So at our peak on second shift, we had 4 people processing laundry, and then we just kind of incentivized them to move over to third shift, and they made more money and things like that, and then never looked back from there. But for us, we got into pickup and delivery and wash, dry, fold because we wanted to utilize that excess capacity. If you have a store that's doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 turns a day, most people think that's really good, and quite frankly, it is for self-serve business. But if you monetize that, you think of a washer, and how long does a washer cycle take? It's usually about 30 minutes. If you're doing 8 turns a day, I mean, that's only 4 hours. That means the other 20 hours of the day, the machine is sitting there costing you money by utilizing electricity and things like that. So that was the reason I got into wash, dry, fold, pickup, and delivery is I saw all this wasted equipment, all this excess capacity, and I wanted to be able to capitalize on that. I had invested a lot of money in my 4 stores and my infrastructure and my team, and I just saw an opportunity. But full disclosure, not as easy as it sounds either. It's a different business. It's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But we do.
Are you paying workers more to work at night?
We do not, believe it or not. We don't pay them more, but they are paid pretty well. Our processors, to give you an example, they make about $6 an hour above minimum wage. And then they also get a bonus based on productivity, and their bonus In some cases, they don't get a bonus if they don't reach certain thresholds, and then in other cases, they can earn $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 an hour more. So you take someone that's kind of applying for an entry level position. A lot of times, you're paying them $5, $6 an hour above minimum wage to start with, and then offering them a bonus structure where they can earn another $4, $5, $6 an hour. All of a sudden, Cincinnati, for example, and I know we're low, but Cincinnati, our minimum wage is like $9.30 an hour, and our processors are a lot of times with their bonuses making over $20 an hour, and so that's a pretty good, lower middle class job in this part of town or in this part of the country. So around here, they're willing to work third shift to do that. Part of the reason we have a second shift processing crew, even though it's a mini crew, is because not everybody wants to work third shift, but there's some good people out there that you don't want to turn down. If you find somebody that's going to be a good employee, you want to utilize them. We just don't want it to affect our self-serve business, so we try to kind of balance that.
Yeah. Do you have sorry guys, I'm trying to rein this guy in here and get some of these questions answered. I got 3 checked off and my list is already all the way down the page. Do you
Tons of questions.
Do you look at demographic data at all? Or do you have a program or a website or anything that you're getting that data from?
Well, demographic data can be gotten from any equipment distributor. They get that information directly from the manufacturers. You can also get it from the CLA. Yeah, I look at demographic data. I think it's relevant. I just don't think it's the golden goose that not everybody, a lot of people think it is. I'm a big fan of data. I think data is very valuable when used in context. And so if you're looking at demographics, but for example, you're not looking at a competitive analysis. So let's say you have a market where the demographics are through the roof, and I won't go down that rabbit hole, but let's say they're just through the roof and it's just the best location ever for a laundromat, but you don't do any competitive analysis. Well, what if there's 10 $2 million laundromats within 3 miles? Is that going to be a good investment for you? Even though the demographics are amazing, probably not. And then the flip side is also true. Let's say your demographics are very so-so, but there's really no competition in that market. And you want to run a laundromat, but you also want to run a pickup and delivery service, and you also want to do drop off. And you're going to have multiple different revenue streams versus just those low income self-serve customers. And that's why I tell people, you and I talk about this all the time, Jordan, but the fact of the matter is that there's probably 30, 40 different business models, different hybrids of different models, a way to be successful. So I really believe as long as there are people in that market, you can be successful. Now, you may not want to run that kind of business. You may be in an upper middle class area. Yeah, you're not going to do a ton of self-serve business, but you can still do a lot of pickup and delivery and wash, dry, fold and dry cleaning, and you can do some self-serve when you get bigger capacity equipment in there and focus on things like comforters and things that won't fit in their residential washers and dryers. So for that reason, I don't really believe that demographics are the be all end all, but they're absolutely important and we have to have that information.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, any broker or distributor should be able to get that information for you, or you can, I think, purchase it on the CLA website. We talked about how to protect yourself from misinformation. Guys, I'm going through and I'm still writing down your questions. So I know we're like way behind.
This is so fantastic.
The thing here. So keep those questions coming though, because we're going to try to get to all of them here. So, and I am working my way down them. Okay. That's my role when I have Dave, because Dave just chatters forever and I can write down a bunch of questions.
It is. True story.
Interesting question. Dryer vent trunk line, square duct versus spiral round. I mean, we're getting straight into fluid dynamics here. And I don't know if you have an opinion on either one of those.
Well, I have a couple opinions, and they're basically the opinions of my distributor. So the first thing I'll tell you is when it comes to anything associated with infrastructure, unless you are an expert, which I am not, that's not what I do. I run laundromats. My expertise isn't building them, although I certainly have built them. I've leaned on experts. So when it comes to the manufacturers and their guidelines, you want to follow those. You obviously have to follow code. You want to lean on your equipment distributor. But when it comes to like ventilation, as a general rule, I mean, I'm not sure it matters a whole lot, but what my distributors always told me is you're just not looking for any edges. You're not looking for anything that's going to denigrate the flow of air. So anytime you see a 90-degree turn in a vent. Not saying it's necessarily awful. It's just not ideal. Whether it's square, I mean, there are a million different situations out there, but you're just looking for air to flow as calmly as it can. So I'm definitely not an expert on these things. I just build my stores according to what the manufacturers recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you're looking for good airflow, right?
Mhm.
And so, the go with what an expert says, go with what the manufacturer recommends. I mean, I think typically the spiral cylindrical ones tend to move air quicker and get it out of there faster. But go with whatever the recommendation is and lean on those experts for sure.
Yeah, another thing I'll say too, Jordan, is never cut corners because you'll see a lot of situations where you'll have old single pocket 30-pound dryers and they might have let's say a 6-inch vent, just going straight out the roof. And I've seen it so many times where people will put a different size dryer in there that has an 8-inch vent. And we all know they make reductions. So you can take the 8-inch from the machine and go halfway up the stack and then reduce it down to a 6. Technically, it's going to work, but you're cutting corners. Like, you need to fix that. And trust me, I've put lipstick on a pig plenty of times to get to where I am today. So I understand we all have budgets and limited money and all those things. First of all, obviously don't do anything that's unsafe, first of all. But more importantly, whenever you can, don't cut corners. When you if you're going to cut a corner, make sure it's never a safety issue. Now, if it could be a production issue, like, okay, this is going to be hard on the machine, for example, but at least make sure it's not a safety issue. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Scott says every turn, angle, bump reduces airflow. It's exactly right. Anything reducing airflow you do not want, but that doesn't mean it won't work that way either.
Well, and just a quick, explanation for why you don't want that is because the efficiency of the dryer is going to be affected, and that's why you don't want that. So the least amount you can impede the exit of the exhaust of that dryer, the more efficient your dryer is going to be. So that's the reasoning behind it, and also for the actual functioning of the dryer as well. Okay, so somebody lives in or near a small town, 300 to 1,000 people. It doesn't even have a gas station. Is it worth it to put a small laundromat in a location like that?
How many people?
300 to 1,000.
Goodness. I mean, you know me, I'm all about it depends, but generally speaking, I wouldn't bother with that. What I will tell you, it doesn't mean you can't build a viable business there. Just understand the parameters around it. You're probably looking, and this is semantics, but you're probably looking at building more of what I call a laundry room than a laundromat. And I don't, that there's a clear definition on either of those. But laundry room, I typically associate with anything less than 10 machines is typically what I call a laundry room versus a laundromat. But you could certainly have a viable business there. Just keep it in context. 300 to 1,000 people is not many.
Not many. Yeah, and I mean, it also kind of depends like what's around the area. Maybe there's 300 to 1,000 people in the town, and then within the surrounding 10 miles where there's no other access to laundromats, maybe there's more than that.
Great point. It's a great point. Yep.
And also it depends on what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for an extra $500 to $1,000 a month, it could be a way to go and get an extra $500 to $1,000 a month, just for some side income or whatever. But you need to have your expectations aligned with the situation. So, kind of mentioned, I heard you talking a little bit about free laundromats. Did you say whether it's worth it or not to go that way?
I kind of talked about the pros and cons, and I talked about, the need to just be cautious. I mean, just from a high level.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, Jordan has a great video out on that. So YouTube, is that what it is on your YouTube channel somewhere?
On YouTube. You got a 3-parter on it too, right?
I don't even know anymore.
You do.
I know I addressed it at some point. Yeah, check out YouTube, guys. But yeah, we talked about it. I kind of talked about the fact that a lot of them are there, because they're bad locations, or so you want to stay away from those. But if it went out of business because it just had poor operations, then it can be a great opportunity, but they're definitely not what a lot of people make them out to be. It's not like they're on every corner. They're not Easter eggs. They're
Yeah, and I would just say, it is critical if you're going to go down that route. It is critical that you, number one, understand why that laundromat is operating the way that it is or not operating the way that it is.
Mhm.
And you also need to have a solid plan on how you're going to fix the issue, whatever it is, and make that laundromat profitable. And if you don't have both of those things, and you can't just take the word for the landlord or the previous owner or whatever, you've got to dig in and really have a good grasp on why that thing has gone out of business. And, I know there's a lot of, chatter on YouTube and a lot of videos on YouTube about the free laundromats, which is cool. And again, it is possible to do that. However, it's not sunshine and roses like it's presented to be. And
Yeah.
some of the people, in fact, some of the people who called out my video who got free laundromats are no longer in the industry. And so I'm not saying that to put anybody down, but I'm just saying that as a caveat of like, hey, there's this spectrum between time and effort and money, right? And they tend to be inversely correlated. So if you're going to go with no money out of your pocket down here, then you better expect that your effort and time involvement are going to be up here, at the top here. And so you've got to just have that understanding there, that's what it's going to be like. That's what it's going to be like if you want to make it work. And that's kind of your scenario when you got your first laundromat,
Sure,
right? Like you did it for relatively little money, but it was a lot of work. You were before and after your full-time job shifts, right? Yeah.
Yep.
You were high on the effort, low on the money.
Yep. Oh, that inverse correlation is very well put. Very well put.
Okay, cool. You got any thoughts on seller financing? Is that a viable way to go?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's seller financing is one of my favorite things. Obviously, the caveat is is it a win-win? That's what I always go to. So find somebody that's motivated in a different direction than you are. Find a win-win where you're both happy. I mean, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Jordan, but for those of you that aren't familiar with my YouTube channel, check it out. My store I just built. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the building I got for $5,000 down, and the building owner financed the whole thing, $630,000. It was paid for. It was in really rough shape. It was a small laundromat, big building, but a hot mess. And he knew that I knew the industry. He knew that I would fix it up. He knew that I would turn it into what I did turn it into. And so he saw his risk as very low if he financed it for me. Now, he probably wouldn't finance it for probably anyone else. I happen to lease another building from him, so he knows me pretty well. And I turned that building around for him too. And in this case, I said, no, I'm not going to invest in your building. You can sell it to me, you can finance it, or I'm not going to do this deal. But that newest store, I bought a $630,000 piece of property that's probably worth about $1 million with $5,000 down. So I'm a big, big, big fan of that. But kind of like the free laundromat thing, just be careful. They're just because they're willing to finance it for you doesn't mean it's a good deal. Just make sure it's going to be a viable project otherwise. But the flexibility that goes with owner financing and things like that, it can, especially when you're in the situation I've been in with limited capital for a long time, it can, it can be the difference in making a deal happen or not. And once again, hey, I've always been willing to put sweat equity into this, but I can't make cash up here. And I don't regret any of it. It's literally made me a millionaire. That's why I sit here today. So,
yeah. And I'll just add to that, I know some of you guys are probably more familiar with real estate investing, and seller financing is sort of that like mythical unicorn of real estate investing. But I will say that it's more common in laundromats than in real estate. And
it's a great point.
there's a couple reasons for that though. I want to make sure we're all clear on that. Number one is similar to your situation. The laundromat and or the building might be in really rough shape and may not be financeable by a bank.
Yep.
And or number two, the financials might be in really rough shape or in secretive shape, illegitimate
100%.
shape. and not financeable by a bank or financing company. And so owners in those situations oftentimes have to finance all or part of a deal in order to actually sell their property. So that's what makes it more common in laundromats, generally speaking, than in real estate. And it's possible to do it with real estate as well, as you demonstrated, right? That's what you did with your building. But with laundromats, it's even more common. But that comes with the caveat of, usually there's a reason, not always, but usually there's a reason why that is. And somebody asked too about 100% seller financing. Yes, it's less common, but also possible. And like your deal is almost 100% financing there. So it is possible, not super common because the owner or the seller in that situation is taking on more risk without you having any skin in the game. But if the right situation presents itself, it's possible, and it can be a great win-win for both people in the right situation.
Well, and I'll add too that I have two buildings actually. both the commercial buildings I own right now, I acquired with owner financing, basically zero down, a couple $1,000. But in both cases, the reason I did that is because I had built such a reputation and a brand in that market for knowing this industry like the back of my hand. They were able to go and look at my other stores, see the before and after. I shared pictures. I kind of told a story to them of who I was. In one case, they already knew those things. So once again, if you're new to the industry, don't necessarily expect to just walk in from day one and be like, hey, you should give me your building for free, which is basically pretty much what they're doing. I mean, the reason they're typically willing to do that is because they're betting on you, and you typically have to have a track record for that to be worthwhile for the property owner. So just keep that in mind too. Where are you in the equation? Where are they in the equation? Because I think you mentioned a risk profile. That's really what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
The people that financed these buildings for me, they had next to no risk. They financed the building for me, and they knew I was going to go put $1.5 million in it. Well, I mean, they know I know what I'm doing. Do they really think I'm going to, drive this thing into the ground and they're going to get their building back? And to be honest, Jordan, I actually use it as leverage too. I told him, I said, hey, if you do get your building back, look what.
Yeah,
I mean, I showed
awesome.
him. Yeah, I was like, imagine what you're going to be getting back.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it's about spin.
Yeah.
Not spin, but telling a
story.
story.
It's about the story.
Telling a story. Yep.
And people can get behind a good story too. And even if you're new to the business, like people can get behind a good story. So, if you're new and you're trying to get that seller financing deal, tell your story. And if it's compelling, people can get behind it. Two quick things. Number one, I'm just catching up in the chat to where I jumped in and a bunch of people said, hey, and you're pumped to be here. I'm pumped to be here. And hey to everybody. And number two, I love as I'm reading through these comments, just so much good interaction happening over there. You guys are answering each other's questions, ignoring Dave as he rambles on, and having good, solid conversations over there while he's talking about whatever. So I just want to say that.
I'm like Charlie Brown's teacher over here. It's fine. Hey, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of people hurting in Florida right now. A couple hundred people lost their lives. Kind of crazy town in certain parts. I know it's not the whole state, but I'd say everyone's a little wet at least. I'm sure Stacy can attest to that. But just keep them in your prayers. I mean, nothing more really needs to be said, but that's a terrible situation.
Yeah, craziness going over there right now.
It is.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know for a fact we have some friends that are in the middle of that, not exactly sure where, whether they're safe or not, quite frankly. So crazy situation. Just wanted to throw that out there and have a thought for a minute.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely prayers out to everybody out in Florida and everybody who's being kind of touched by that situation going on over there. Okay. There's a new shopping center opening up. How can somebody get a laundromat into that shopping center? Where should they start?
Well, if it's a new shopping center, meaning it's being developed, I mean, you want to go to the developer. I will caution you that if it's a new shopping center being developed, the odds of them wanting a laundromat in it aren't real high. There are some situations where they're building it with specific anchor tenants in mind, maybe a Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, and they know that you're going to fit right with that clientele. But a lot of new properties, new shopping centers, especially the nicer ones that are being built nowadays, the fact of the matter is we as an industry still have kind of a negative connotation associated with us. It's changing, but it still exists. So it's a tough sell when they're building this nice brand new building. Um, a lot of businesses don't want a laundromat in the same building as them. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, how do you get to the bottom of it? I mean, you can go to your, local municipality and find out who those people are. If you know the developer, sometimes it's even on a sign, things like that. You can go in there and pretend that you want to be a tenant. Oh, wait, you do want to be a tenant. So you can just go in there and start talking to them about the space. Typically, they market these things ahead of times a lot of time. What say you, Mr. Commercial Expert?
Yeah, I mean, yes, talking to the developer or the management company. If there's a management company in place already, go chat with the management company and see what it is that they're looking for and go hear their vision of the shopping center. And again, you're probably going to have to sell your vision of the laundromat and
100%.
talking about story, and you got to tell the story of what you're trying to do there, what you're trying to build. And I mean, it's a sales job, right? It's a
Mhm.
sales job. But ultimately, I mean, it's gotta work too. So, if you're starting to get some positive feedback from a developer, management company, then that would probably be a good time to go bring in a distributor or somebody who can help you make sure that's going to be a good spot for a laundromat, because you need a lot of things in place, including like demographics. You need a competition profile. You need to make sure there's parking. You need to make sure there's signage. There's a whole lot of things that need to be put in place that you may not know if you've never done that before. So getting somebody knowledgeable in there to say, hey, is this a good spot for a laundromat? Um, would be super beneficial, I think.
Yeah, I know you got I know you got a list a mile long, so I don't want to start reading out ones you probably have on your list. So I'll let you keep running with it.
Okay, we'll just keep
There's so
chucking down the
many.
list. Okay,
I
and
can't tell you how excited I am to just see this type of activity,
yeah,
man.
so cool.
Proud. I know this is your proud of what you built, man. I know I tell you that offline, but good stuff, man. There's a lot of people in here and a lot of smart people and a lot of newbies that I'm sure are smart and want to do a lot of good stuff and are looking for good information. And
Come to the
sorry,
right
go
place.
ahead.
Yeah.
Came to the right
Okay.
place. Got
So
that right.
somebody asked if our courses are applicable in Australia, and I'll speak for mine, and the answer to that is yes. Mine is practical step by step, and the principles are all going to be relevant. There may be some details here or there that may not line up
Mhm.
directly, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head for my stuff
Mhm.
that won't line up with anywhere in the world, really. How about yours?
Yeah, I think the same thing is mostly true. I mean, the only caveat I'll throw out there just for me personally is, hey, I've never owned or run a laundromat in Australia, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on your market. But a lot of what my course teaches you to do isn't necessarily the nuts and bolts as far as copper lines and electric lines and drain lines and that kind of stuff. My stuff is more about building the right external team, getting the right team around you with equipment distributors and financing and equipment mixes and layouts and things like that. So there's always going to be some little idiosyncrasies. I mean, honestly, even from market to market in the US, that's the case. I would just think that Australia, for the most part, would just be a different market. I know for a fact you and I both have, I think we have 6 or 7 people on the Laundromat Millionaire platform that follow us regularly from Australia. A couple of them I got to meet at the Clean Show. So I don't
My
think they
next
would be.
guest on the podcast, Jono.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Did it already come out
Next week.
next week? Okay,
Awesome
there you
interview,
go.
by the way. Awesome interview.
There you go. Check that out. What is that, episode 103?
Yeah, I think three. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Australia. Yes. Renting versus buying. We get this question pretty much every time. You want to throw in your 2 cents?
My 2 cents. I think it's Jordan's 2 cents.
Yeah.
Rent or lease. Well, the first thing I always start with is, some people are just real estate people. I don't know that I used to be, but I kind of am nowadays. So I don't really want to lease. I'd prefer to own. So I think you have to start with what's your preference. If you're looking to build 20, 30, 40, 50 laundromats quickly I mean, you're not going to do that with limited capital, but I mean, you want to extend your capital as far as it can, then you probably don't want to tie it up in real estate. You probably want to use that to create cash flow. by creating and multiplying and scaling businesses. I think it depends on what's the priority for you. Obviously, there's some situations where, you're there's there's some situations where I don't know that you're, unless you're, way wealthier than me, that you're going to be able to buy it. There's some cases where it's a $10 million shopping center, and that's just not going to be in your wheelhouse. So if you want to
Bring
make the
that
deal
deal to
happen,
me.
take that deal to Jordan. He's got other people's money. But yeah,
Tomorrow, by the way, Diligence Capital Investments, the Laundromat Fund is starting the next raise. So
nice.
excited about that.
Yeah, fantastic. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Good for you. I
yeah,
remember when you started that.
I know.
Wasn't that long ago, really.
Wasn't that long ago. I know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. That was pretty much all I had. I mean, it's person. You gotta do personal preference, and then it's a numbers game.
Yeah, and I would just say, it depends, and what it depends on is your. And by the way, I kind of half jokingly, and we kind of half jokingly say it depends all the time, but really it does depend all the time. But we try not to leave you with it depends. We try to tell you what it depends on. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But here's what it depends on. It depends on your goals. What are your goals? And, I think laundromats are an awesome cash flow play, and there's great tax advantages, and there is some equity potential in laundromats too. For me, real estate is an awesome tax advantage and an awesome equity potential there too. And I see huge value in having both, but I also just see huge value in owning one or the other, or both separately as well. And if you're looking for cash flow, if your goal is to escape the 9 to 5 ASAP, and you want out, I say, go get a laundromat or 2 laundromats and go for that cash flow that can give you the freedom to go scale out. If you're looking to grow your net worth and your wealth faster, look for both. But it also depends on what market you're in and what's available and all that stuff too. So, but start with your goals. What's your goal? And craft your strategy and your plan around what your goals are. And follow that goal, right? Create that plan and then go after it there.
Well, the other thing on there too is, keep in mind, we're always changing, we're always pivoting. So there was a time where that wasn't realistic for me.
Totally.
I invested enough money and enough sweat equity to get to the point where now that was a realistic goal. And so, you're not stuck where you are right now. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, you probably should just anticipate you not being in the same place. And if you are, and if you are, then maybe it's time to take a pause and reevaluate and see where you're going from here too. So
maybe you need to watch a few more of the Laundromat Millionaire or Laundromat Resource podcasts.
Yeah.
I was trying to give you a plug and I accidentally gave myself a plug.
I don't know, dude.
You just need to listen to more podcasts. That'll work.
Right. Okay, so best place to find a laundromat for sale. Here's what I'm going to do. We're not going to answer this question because Dave will just ramble on forever. Go to the course or my YouTube channel. Lesson 1 of the course is the 3 ways that are working right now in this market to find laundromats for sale. Just go watch it. It's like 15 or 20 minutes long because I'm long-winded like Dave. So go watch that. That'll tell you exactly the 3 ways that I'm using, that my coaching clients are using, and that Diligence Capital, my investment fund, are using to find deals right now in this market. So go check that out. Pros and cons of an asset sale. Can I start with this one? I have something to say.
Go ahead. You're the king. Okay,
so there's 2 different things that people are talking about when they're talking about an asset sale. Okay, so sometimes when people say an asset sale, they're talking about valuing the laundromat based on the value of the assets. And generally, this is the case if the laundromat's not performing well, or not, or even losing money. And so they're going to value based on the value of the assets. Now, there's some value in that, and it becomes a little difficult to value a laundromat that's not making money or that's even losing money. And there's debate on whether there is value in that. I think that there is sometimes, and sometimes there isn't. So that's one scenario that people mean when they mean an asset sale. The other scenario is more of like a legal term. And, when you actually acquire a laundromat, you can either do a stock purchase or an asset purchase. And the difference is a stock purchase, you're buying the actual LLC or S Corp or C Corp or whatever it is. You're buying the stocks of that and owning that business. Now, generally, that's not advised because you're inheriting all of the liabilities and everything of that corporation. And also, the tax depreciation has been partially or entirely used up. And that's one of the big perks of owning a laundromat is the tax depreciation. Talk to your CPA about that. But that's been used up by that corporation. Whereas if you do an asset purchase, the assets, yes, that means the equipment of the actual laundromat and stuff, but also included in the assets is what's called goodwill, right? That's like your customer base. That's the cash flow basically of the laundromat. And that's an asset sale. And then you would start your own LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whatever it is, to own those assets. And the depreciation schedule will reset in that scenario, and you don't inherit any of the legal liabilities or otherwise financial liabilities of the previous owner and their entity. So I just wanted to kind of explain that generally an asset sale in the legal sense of it is advised. And again, talk to your lawyer and your CPA just to verify in your scenario. But that is advised. And in terms of buying a laundromat based on the value of the assets, it really depends on the situation, I would say. What do you have to say about that? Anything?
No, I think you covered most of it. I mean, the only thing I would add, I don't know if you said this or not. You said a lot, but the only thing I would add is get a good business attorney, get a good business CPA that understands your strategy. Hopefully, you understand your strategy. You can relay that information to them. And then the other thing I'll add is get them in a room together. Make sure they are working as a team, because more often than not, you'll hear an attorney gives you recommendations on legal advice, and then an accountant gives you advice based on tax advantages, and those don't always necessarily mix together. So I always say I want to be in a room with both of them, all three of us, so we can discuss this as a team. But yeah, I don't know of too many situations where the assets isn't the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. What makes a good location?
The quick answer: no competition.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm a firm believer. I mean, obviously, there's a million different correlations to that, but I'm a firm believer that if the laws of supply and demand are tipped in your favor in any market, you can win. You can kill it. All you just got to do is go out and serve people that aren't currently being taken care of. It's just not rocket science. Now, how do you do that? Well, that's a little bit more complicated, but I've just seen so many situations where, including myself early on, where I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did that right. And I just had so much momentum and so much playing for me in my favor that I almost couldn't lose. And then I've seen the other. I've seen people that are very well capitalized, that are smart, that know what they're doing. Sometimes they get a little bit too big for their britches and decide I'm gonna build across the street from Jordan and different things like that. And they just, becomes an ego play. And just, man, the laws of supply and demand are undefeated, guys. Like, there are so many opportunities out there. Why would you not start there? I just don't. I'll never understand that. It's really not any more complicated than that.
Yeah. So Antarctica is the spot. There's zero competition there.
Yep. Well, you got to have some people too.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that is great, and I think that the competition thing is huge. And what you'll see a lot of times though is experienced owners or inexperienced owners come in where there's I'll just call them zombie mats, where there's zombie mats that are serving the community. And, we'll come in and put in a bigger, newer, nicer laundromat and just kind of vacuum up all of the competition there. So, when you're looking for a good location, you want to keep that in mind. You don't want to be one of the zombie mats, or if you're going to be one of the zombie mats in the area, you want to quickly elevate your game in that laundromat so that you're not susceptible to that new owner coming in and sucking up all your business.
Mm-hmm. Let me add one more thing real quick. When you're doing that and you're going into a market, and I know we're running out of time, when you're going into a market that's underserved, always make sure you have one of the top locations. Because when you invest in that location, I call it being uncompetable. When you invest in that location and you make it nice, somebody can come in and try to do what you're doing. But if you have a better location, you have better parking, you have a better lease, you have things that are that are, core competencies of a successful laundromat, then the only thing that people can do around you is do, just a step below that. So if there is a market where there's great demographics, 5 laundromats, they're all, terribly run, don't just necessarily go after the one just because it happens to have a for sale sign in the window. That might be the worst location. If you're going to try to capture that market, make sure you try to get either the or one of the best locations that are there. Because then when you make that investment, you can just kind of fly. You don't have to worry. The risk proposition associated with that kind of goes down drastically for you when you're already starting out with kind of an ace in the hole. And I've talked about this before, but I mean, I could probably own 20, 30 laundromats right now if I wanted to, but over my life, I've owned 5. I own 4 now, and they're the 4 best locations on the east side of Cincinnati. And I did that very strategically for a reason. Some of the other ones that went out of the business now, and if anybody were to try to go in and revitalize them, I mean, good luck, because I've got the best locations, I've got the best facilities, I've got the best team. It's just tough to compete with that. I use the term uncompetable. That's just the way I look at my business. I want to control my market, and I want to keep anyone else from coming in and being able to, one up me, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to answer this one real quick because we do have a lot still to get through. Where to find great laundromat brokers? I mean, the best way to find them is to ask other owners.
Jordan. Call Jordan.
Yeah. Ask other owners. Just Google laundromat brokers and Google small business brokers, and then you can search laundromat for sale near me and see who the brokers are that are listing those laundromats. Those are some of the best ways to find them that I know of. And kind of going back, Dave was saying something about distributors having a lot of like newbies and tire kickers and all that stuff. Brokers, same thing. So you got to come demonstrating something about this business, and you can make decisions if stuff comes your way. Otherwise, you may or may not hear back from brokers. So that's just a little tip there. What should someone be doing besides educating and networking while they're looking for a laundromat? Inventory is low. It's hard to find a deal right now. Is there anything else somebody should be doing besides networking and educating?
I mean, positioning, whether it's capital or credit, just you always, even once you're in the industry for that matter, you always want to be positioning yourself. I say it all the time, Jordan, just want to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. If your goal is to acquire and enter the laundromat space and you're not in it right now, every day, what can you do? If maybe you have a 750 credit score, good for you. Let's see if we can get 775. Maybe you got 300 grand in the bank. Let's see if we can get it to 320. I mean, you can't ever be in too good of a position because you never know what opportunities are coming. I think we just assume that we get to a certain level and all of a sudden we've arrived. I mean, I'm literally sitting here today doing the same thing that I was doing 14 years ago now. I'm just trying to make sure I'm in a better position. So if some opportunity came along that I don't even know about, that I could capitalize on it. And it might be acquiring a store. It might actually be selling a store for that matter. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of my macro brain just kind of works that way. What do you think?
No, I think that's killer advice. And especially, I'd say the more uncertainty there is in the world, the more important it is to have that capital
Dry powder
ready to go. And right now I'd say is one of the most uncertain times we've had in a really long time. And, maybe things won't blow up, but maybe they will. And so, yeah, I think positioning is a great answer. And then the other thing I would say is, go to that free course that I have and go look at lesson number 1 and start doing those things, because yes, there's not a lot out there right now, but there's stuff to buy. You just got to work a little harder to go get it. So if you're really looking for a deal, go do that lesson 1 of that course on the Laundromat Resource website. Again, it's free. So go check that out.
I mean, the whole course, isn't your whole mini course like an hour, Jordan? Hour and a half?
Yeah,
like that?
totally. The whole thing is an hour long.
Yeah.
So. It's
Fantastic.
good information. And the only reason I say that is not because I made it. It's because I do a weekly webinar and I gather all the questions that people have. And that course answers the majority of the questions that we get from newbies here on these things. And then I get on those webinars. So it's great. What are you looking for in demographics? I mean, we kind of already talked about that, but I mean, really you're looking for on the self-serve side, you're looking for, median income and below, you're looking for household size, you're looking for the density of the population that's there. And those things will tell you whether it's a good location for a laundromat or not. And again, Dave kind of already mentioned it's not the end all be all by any means, but it can give you a little bit of data to make sure. But the reality of it is, if you're buying an existing laundromat and it's making money, I think the demographics become even less important because it's already demonstrating that it's a good market. And that's where you want to probably focus more on the competitor side of things. How much money to open a laundromat, Dave?
Zero. They're free. Didn't you know
They're
that?
free.
What I tell people, and I mean, I talked about it before you came on, Jordan. I actually did acquire my second store for free, quote unquote. And then I borrowed hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it a viable business. But I didn't technically put any money down. So there are situations like that out there. But as a general rule, what I tell people is, in most situations, most markets, if you don't have in the range of 30 to 50,000, then you're probably not prepared, because there are not a ton of situations out there that you can make work. I mean, there are situations where you can work your butt off for 5 years to eventually make $1,000. But I don't know that that's a good investment. I mean, that's why I hate it when I see these ads and things about 95% success rate of laundromats and stuff like that. It drives me crazy because I'm like, can we define success? like just because it's not closed doesn't mean that it's successful. And I think that's how they're basing it. But anyways, I digress.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna have to go rapid fire because there's
Yep.
so many questions still. Okay. Look, I'm gonna answer this one. Management companies with turnkey laundromats for passive income. What is our advice on that? It depends. I mean, it can be a good way to go, but it's a business, right? And you're outsourcing your business. And if you're really looking for something that's genuinely passive, number one, I would say, hey, Diligence Capital Investments, genuinely passive. We're doing a round of fundraising. Shoot me an email, jordan@laundromatresource.com. If you want something genuinely passive in the laundromat business, if you're looking to own your business and have it managed, it really depends on who the management company is and what exactly they're doing and how much you trust them to run your business, because that's what they're doing. And, it can be a good way to go. I don't know. You want to say something quick about that? Quick.
What I want to say about it real quick is I think I'm a perfect example, because I tell people all the time that while it certainly wasn't an easy road to hoe, I am currently a passive owner. I own a multi-million-dollar laundromat chain, and I don't work in my businesses at all. Now, I've built an amazing team. They do everything. I don't do anything in my businesses. Do I oversee them from a high level? Yes, it literally requires an hour or two a week. But it took me 12, 13 years to get there. So there's more than one way to be passive. The business is not passive. The business needs an operator.
Good. And that checks off James's question that's down the list, but can you truly be passive there? Okay.
Not as easy as it sounds. I want to be
Not
clear.
as easy as it sounds, unless you invest with Diligence Capital Investments.
True.
Ross Dodds does all the work for you.
Why? Yeah. Why do what I'm doing when you can just give Jordan your money?
That's right. Just give me the money. That's right. Okay. Can you qualify for an SBA with no experience? The answer to that question is it depends. Yes, they do like to see some business experience, but you can. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've done it. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Somebody asked the best app system. You want to answer that? It depends.
For what?
for software, like payment stuff.
I think there's a lot of good choices out there.
Yeah. He's
I mean,
going to the
if you're asking what I use, I mean, I use Sense. I don't think that's a secret.
yeah.
But I think there's a lot of good options out there for you. I recommend people do their homework. Don't just go use something because I use it or Jordan says it's good or whatever. I mean, do your homework, do a
Mhm.
demo, but there's way more than that to it too. I don't know if they're referring to an app for like even payment on self-serve. I mean, there's the manufacturers all have their own apps for phone pay and things like that. I'm not real sure what they're asking, but
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to answer this one. What point do you involve a lawyer and what type of lawyer to look for? I saw somebody answered in the chat, but I think you don't need to involve a lawyer until you're starting to sign legal documents. So maybe you want a lawyer to look over the purchase agreement. Definitely have a lawyer look over the lease. You want to know what you're walking into and what kind of lawyer you need a contract lawyer. The best way I found to get one is either through a reference from another business owner or just do the, crowdsourcing method and go on Google or Yelp or whatever and see who has good reviews for contract lawyer. Uh, is median income a good litmus uh, for pricing? I'm not sure what that question is. If you have that question, can you rephrase it for me so I understand a little better? Maybe I wrote it down wrong. Should the vents be insulated? I think that was from our previous conversation. You don't need to insulate dryer vents. You
mhm.
probably do want to insulate some of your hot water pipes and if you have a tank, insulate that, but not your vents for the dryers. How about using retirement funds to buy a laundromat? Google ROBS, ROBS.
Mhm.
And also, you can use retirement funds with diligent capital investments. So, you know, just think about that one. But Google Robs, if you're looking to use retirement funds to buy a,
I think that
uh,
was I don't know how deep you went on it, but it wasn't it Steve Andrews episode on Laundromat Resource Podcast. He did that.
yeah, I think so.
I don't think he went super deep on the episode, but he did that and he is wildly successful now. And that's how he got started. So you absolutely can do it.
Yeah. Do you have hey, all right, Stacy, I just saw your email. This was a good one for you actually, and try to keep it short, but do you have advice for a competitor who's charging $1.05 for wash dry fold when they're charging $1.75 and they're finding that customers are having sticker shock? Like other businesses, I think sounds like commercial accounts are
Hmm.
having sticker shock when they hear that they're charging $1.75.
Yep. Just over deliver on the value is a quick answer. I charge $2.50 a pound for pickup and delivery. I have competitors that charge $1.40.
Mm-hmm.
They can't hold a candle to us because we're not, I always use the analogy of Chick-fil-A and McDonald's. They're both in the fast food restaurant business. Um, Other than that, I'm not sure there's anything they do the same. Completely different experience, completely, the way you're treated. Pricing is a part of that. The quality of the food, I guess that's debatable, but I prefer their food a lot more. But you can also use an analogy I did in a video of a steak. You can get a steak at a Golden Corral, or you can get a steak at a five-star restaurant for $200. They're not the same steak. So just make sure that your product, the service you're providing to your market, isn't aligned with theirs. Because if you're providing the same level of product, then and you're charging more, well, then the value doesn't align.
I mean, how would you get them to switch? Would you recommend saying, "Listen, try us one time, and see the value," or how would you get them to switch? Do you have like a sales pitch that you would give to these
Well,
companies?
if there's a huge disparity in the price like that, I don't know that I would go after their customers because I'm a big fan of going after your ideal avatar. And if they're providing a cheap service and you're providing a premium service that's priced drastically different, I don't know that their customers are going to move over to you. And by anything you do, at least, they're probably more likely to come try you after trying them and getting a poor level of service, and they'll come over to you and see you're drastically higher, and then of course have higher expectations. You just have to make sure you meet those. But I'm not a super big fan of going after other people's customers. I just think there's way too much business out there. I don't think we have to battle. If I'm 250 and you're $1.50, your customers probably aren't happy anyways. They're probably going to find me. So, I mean, when it comes to marketing and advertising and things like that, ads we run, billboards, whatever it is, I mean, we're always promoting the best value in the market. That's what we're always doing. What I call market differentiators, what makes us different than them. And then, of course, have higher expectations. You just have to make sure you meet those. But I'm not a super big fan of going after other people's customers. I just think there's way too much business out there. I don't think we have to battle, other people's customers. So, I mean, when it comes to marketing and advertising and things like that, ads we run, billboards, whatever it is, I mean, we're always promoting the best value in the market. That's what we're always doing. What I call market differentiators, what makes us different than them. And when you're just a low price, what I call commodity mindset, product or service, the only thing you typically can advertise is we're cheaper. I'm like, yep, they're right. They are cheaper. If that's what you want, you should go with them.
Yeah.
So I know it sounds kind of arrogant, but it's just the way that we choose to operate our business. It doesn't mean it's right for you.
Yeah. No, I thought that was well said. Someone asked if it is difficult to get a bank loan to buy a laundromat. And again, I'll just throw out an answer to that. It depends. And it depends on a couple things. Banks are going to look at you and your situation a little more thoroughly than maybe even a laundromat specific lender, and probably also more thoroughly than a seller who's seller financing. But they're also going to look at the business and base their decision on the business and where laundromats run into trouble. And I kind of mentioned this earlier, where laundromats run into trouble a lot or when books don't align or there are no books. If the P&L doesn't match bank deposits and doesn't match tax statements and nothing is lining up, banks see that as very risky and are less likely to lend on that. And again, I mentioned that's why one of the reasons why seller financing is more common in laundromats than other things. So is it difficult? Depends on you and your situation a little bit, but it also really depends on the laundromat that you're trying to get a loan on. Anything to add?
Yeah, if you're buying opportunity, don't expect the traditional bank to understand the opportunity. But if you go with a laundry specific lender like an Eastern Funding, Chris Mahalik, those, even the manufacturers, they understand this industry. They understand that if you buy what you're buying and you invest what you're going to invest, they understand your business plan makes sense, assuming it does. A bank, you can have the best laid plan that everybody in this industry knows is a grand slam, that knows what they're talking about. You take it to a traditional bank, 99 out of 100 times they're going to think you're a fool. Go read my book. Go check out my story when I was on Jordan's podcast. I went through 22 different banks and they all laughed me out of the place before I eventually got it done. And I did get it done through the SBA. So that's why I was saying that's how I got my first store. So yeah, I don't have anything against traditional banks, but when it comes to laundromat lending, they don't understand this industry and we're typically buying opportunity. Don't expect them to understand that you're buying opportunity. If you're buying a turnkey store with polished books and an amazing business and that they'll understand that, but those aren't.
Stable. Yeah.
What's that?
A stable business,
Yeah,
stable
stable
income.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's typically not what most of us are buying. We're either usually building new stores or buying rundown ones to fix up. And banks, I mean, probably half of those 22 banks I went to, they didn't even think this was a real business. I mean, you would have thought I was spending $85,000 on a bubblegum machine. They were like, "Are you insane?" Like they didn't even know it was a real business. I'm like, it's not only is it a real business, it's an entire industry. Like,
Yeah.
are you crazy? But that's just the stigma associated with a laundromat. It's just like a washer dryer in the basement of an apartment complex to them, but it's not a real business.
Yeah. And let me just real quick, I mean, this is unsolicited advice, but for those of you who do own laundromats, or if you end up buying one, this is a real key reason why it can be super valuable for you to keep really good books and run a tight business, because anything you can get a loan on is going to be inherently more valuable than something you can't get a loan on.
And claim your money, claim your
Yeah,
income.
that's right. And so, so if you keep really clean books, it actually adds value to your laundromat and adds net worth to your net worth bucket down the line if you end up selling or refinancing or whatever. So that is a reason to keep clean books and keep accurate and good books along the way. You mentioned turnkey, and most of us aren't buying that. Somebody asked, for your first store, should you buy turnkey or should you buy a fixer?
I think for the most part, it depends on your risk tolerance. It looks like what kind of ROI are you looking for, and what's your capital position. I think that's, if you're looking for a quick answer, those are the three things I would probably jump at.
And your goals. I mean, if
Yeah.
your goal is to get a 20% return on your money, you
Right.
can probably get that by buying a turnkey laundromat.
Yep.
And like you said, the risk position, it's gonna be less risky. It's gonna be a stable business and all of that. So it does depend on what your what your goals are too. So well, let's say this one. for the very end. I only have a couple more questions. Worst customer nightmare story. Let's say this. I'll share one of mine. But new versus used equipment. You got an opinion?
I know a lot of people that sell and refurbish used equipment, and even they will tell you if you can buy new equipment, you should buy new equipment. But there's definitely a market out there, and there's a need for used equipment. The other thing I'll throw out there that they typically don't say, but I'll say, is there are some situations, and we talked about like the 300 to 1,000 person town. Situation like that might not make sense to put new equipment in, but it might make sense to go get some nice refurbished equipment to put in something like that. It's not going to be a high volume store. You don't necessarily need the latest and greatest controls. It is a little bit more of a commodity mindset there. You just got to make sure you still deliver the value.
Yeah, love that. And I agree with that. I'm going to answer this one. Should you form an LLC first, or should you buy it as is? And here's what typically happens in a transaction. If you're going to put it into some corporate form, whether it's an LLC, an S Corp, I think with the Robs, even you have to have a C Corp. So there are situations where you would even do a C Corp. So whatever it is, typically you would enter into contract in your own name, and then you would just have a clause in there that says you can assign the contract to an LLC. And so during the process of due diligence, while you're in escrow, that's when you would form your LLC, S Corp, C Corp, or whatever, and transfer the or assign the purchase agreement to that corporation. You don't need to do that beforehand. I know some people do that and will do it and then start going to look for a business. You can do that, but I would say, number one, it's not necessary. And number two, I mean, you run the risk of having a business with no business if you can't find something or you change your mind or whatever. And then somebody asked about thoughts on Golden State Laundry. I'm not sure exactly what thoughts you're looking for. I would say, it's more about who you're dealing with usually when you're talking about a distributor or something like that, or a brokerage. It's about the person that you're dealing with as opposed to the organization. And there are exceptions to that, I would say, for sure. And I've brought up some of those exceptions on some of the episodes of my podcast, but generally speaking, you're looking for somebody with good character, somebody who has the vision of, if I help you succeed, it's going to also benefit me in the long run too, more so than if I try to pull the wool over your eyes. And, I use the example of the broker who sold me my first laundromat and pulled the wool over my eyes. And now where I'm at, where I literally could be sending them so much business. And not only am I not doing that, I have actively talked other people out of using that broker. And so, just looking for solid people who have a solid vision of what the industry should be.
Play the long game.
Anything to add?
Guys. No, just play the long game in every aspect of your business. I know we're out of time, but excuse me, play the long game. Look for that win-win. Look for that long-term relationship. I mean, even if you're only planning on being in the business for 3 to 5 years and you're just looking to buy a store, fix it up, flip it, whatever, that's fine. You still want to play the long game. Yeah, I know, Stacy. I saw the same thing. I saw Brian Henderson just dropped in like he's been ghosting us for an hour and a half, and all of a sudden now we know Brian Henderson's here. He was probably busy. He's a workaholic, and he's got a family too. He's probably putting the kids to bed. But anyway, good to see you, Brian. Man, glad you're here, man.
Yeah. Okay, regarding the LLC question, I meant if you're buying a laundromat with another person. I don't remember your original question, but yeah. Oh, if you're buying a laundromat with a partner, should we form an LLC first or just as is? Yeah. I'm still not understanding the question. I mean, I would form at least a partnership agreement, and you probably want some form of entity to hold that company. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not. Feel free to clarify. Who was it? Scott? Yeah, Scott asked us to put together a mastermind group. I think that's awesome. I've been talking about doing that forever. I think we've talked about doing that. And yeah, we should do that because I think that would be great. So we'll get on that, Scott. You'll be the first to know.
Good idea.
Okay, last question I have on my list here is worst customer nightmare story. I mean, how scary do we want to get here? I can get real scary.
I can 100% guarantee you Jordan's gonna top me. I
I
mean, I've
mean,
got some, but nothing like Jordan does. When you have to fight a gang in LA, like sorry, I'm in Cincinnati, guys. I can't compete with that.
yeah, I there, there's so many running through my head. I'll tell you one it's not scary, but it's kind of funny, scary. So I had a guy that I walked in the laundromat. The guy was out cold, drunk. Dave,
I know,
the
I saw it.
line needs help. Never think of jumping in.
I know, we hired a bunch of free agents. Apparently, they are not earning their money. I agree, Brian. It's funny.
That's hilarious. So I walked into my laundromat. This guy was just strung out. He was out cold. I actually thought he was dead. There was all this stuff was laying out there. He had drugs out, all that stuff. I thought he actually had died. I couldn't really see him breathing. I called an ambulance. The ambulance came and woke him up. He came to, but he was angry that the ambulance was there. And they checked on, or they were trying to check on him. They wouldn't let him check on him. Or the guy wouldn't let him check on him. And finally, the ambulance guys, the paramedics, they left. And the guy was just pacing. I told him, hey, man, you need to go. You can't be here. And I went about doing my stuff. And he was pacing, yelling. And I had an earbud in. I was listening to an audiobook or something. And I didn't realize he was yelling at me. And eventually I was like, oh, I think he's talking to me. I was like, are you talking to me? And he's like, why'd you effing narc on me? All this stuff. I was like, dude, I thought you were in serious trouble. I called the ambulance. I was worried about you. And he's like, no. And so I was like, he was starting to escalate. So I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to call the police, let them come deal with it. I'm going to leave because it's starting to escalate and I don't want any part of that. And I tried to leave and walk by him and he blocked the door. I'm like, hey man, I gotta, I'm just trying to leave. And he pushed me. And I was like, hey, listen, dude, not a big deal. I'm going. So I tried to go by him. He wouldn't let me pass. And he started swinging at me and he threw a few swings at me. And, I wasn't really in danger of getting hit, but I always have in the back of my head, like all it takes is one lucky shot. Right. And I can hit a folding table. If I hit my head, who knows what happens if I go out. Right. And I got kids and a wife and all this stuff. So he's swinging at me and I'm like, hey, just no big deal. Let's just calm it down. And he wouldn't calm it down. He kept rushing me. So finally I just hit him and I hit him hard and I hit him with my elbow on the way down as I kind of cradled him on the way down and knocked him out cold. Called the ambulance again and the ambulance came back. It was the same ambulance. They came back and carted him out and they were, high-fiving me and stuff. And I tell that as like kind of a funny story, but that was my first experience where I was like, this is not why, like I have kids. I don't want to be fighting people in my laundromat. Like that was a scary, situation and stuff. So, I mean, that's not even the scariest situation that I had been in, but it was kind of funny that the ambulance came and then I called them back and they came back again. And it was just a wild situation. So, but I mean, listen, you're dealing with people. That's not, first of all, that's not a common experience. It was a situation that my broker walked me into unknowingly on my part. So I don't want to scare anybody in that. But you're dealing with people, right? And stuff does happen. People do get upset when things break. People are stressed out or they've got other things going on in their lives. And there are things where you have to deal with people, or you mess up or, you lose their clothes or something like that. Things do happen. And what I think is important in those situations when you're dealing with these like nightmare customers is to try to de-escalate both internally in yourself, de-escalate emotions, and also externally trying to de-escalate the other person. Even to the fact, to the point where you acknowledge whatever it is they're saying, fair or unfair, just acknowledge it, move yourself from the situation. And if the police or whoever need to come deal with that situation, come deal with it. So anyways, man, it's been an eternity that you've been on here. Me, it's normal hour and a half. But dude, awesome Awesome answers to all these questions, guys. Thank you so
Thanks for having
much
me.
for joining us. And thanks for letting me join you on the stream. As always, dude, I love hanging out with you.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. A lot of fun, like Stacy said, just like the olden days. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it
I
was a
know.
little. What is a little while ago? You blink your eyes, and next thing you know, your kids are in college. That's how this works, man. Thank you
Yeah.
all for being here, guys. And we are planning on doing one again in the next month or two on my channel on the Laundromat Resource or Laundromat Millionaire
Now you're
channel.
trying to plug
So,
yourself and you plug
yep.
me.
I
Come
know.
on.
I
Right.
can't even. We need to
Yes.
get different names. I mean, Laundromat Millionaire, Laundromat Resource, awful close together.
Too similar.
But anyways, thank you guys for being here. It's I mean, it's Jordan's channel, obviously, and he just invited me to be here. But thank you so much for being here because we've done a lot of these going back and forth between our channels about a year or so ago, and this was by far the best attendance we've ever had. And we, we do this just to help people out. One thing I will throw in there too, somebody asked that came in late, John Swisher asked if this will be recorded. And yeah, it'll be on both of our platforms, the recording of it. So obviously you can't participate in the chat if you're watching a recording, but you can at least go back and watch and listen to it. So
Yeah.
thanks for having me, man.
And a lot of good stuff in this one. So Dave, appreciate you. And as always, fun hanging out on these things. Everybody in the chat over there, thanks for joining us. A lot of great interactions happening over there. And I saw people connecting who are in, similar areas. So keep doing that. That's awesome. Networking, educating. That's what it's all about. And then go take some action, man. If you're looking to buy a laundromat, go take some action. Go take that course. Go take Dave's course. And then take some action on the things that you're learning as you're going. If you already own laundromats, hey, always time to make them better or go expand or, go after those goals. It's all about the action that we're taking, right? That's what leads us to those goals. So go do it. And we'll see you probably in the next month or two on your channel where we do another
Most definitely.
one. I love it.
All right,
guys.
we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Good evening.